Teen Wolf, In the Heat of the Night, Green Lantern, Emerald Knights, and Lights Out. That's coming up next on the Movie Burner Blog Rundown. And joining us as always is John, and we're going to delve right into this, John, with 1985's film Teen Wolf, directed by Rod Daniel.
Yes, I've not seen this one in a long time, Stephen. I'm glad you reviewed it though, because this is what this is kind of all about. When we first started this little show, we were finding out all the blockbusters and the modern day stuff. I quickly realised this could be an opportunity for us to review some older films that we enjoyed and then bring them into the show and discuss them a little bit. And that's certainly the case with this film. As you say, it's directed by Rod Daniel. This is a guy I can't lie out with maybe 2 or 3 films. I don't know much about what he's done. I do know that he's much more of a TV movie sort of a director and indeed TV series sort of a director. When you look through his history, it's a whole host of different TV shows stretching back to the 1980s, mostly in the mid to late 90s though. I know some of his films, the likes of K9, Teen Wolf, and he also done Home Alone 4 from the early 2000s, that horrendous TV movie where they took it too far, way too far. They recast Macaulay Culkin and everything. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to slag the director here. I'll leave that to you, Stephen. You certainly slagged this film off in your review, and I can understand why. This is before Michael J. Fox made it big with Back to the Future, although as we did discuss before we come on, he actually was filming this synchronously with Back to the Future. On he may have not been filming it synchronously, but the actual films themselves were using the same set and filming synchronously. And also there was a bit of back and forth, I think, with the original character. He was cut loose because it wasn't working. I think you know the chap's name, I don't. Eric Stokes. And he came on, and I think you said he was a little bit envious of Crispin Glover getting to act in this incredible film. Well, he's putting on all these bizarre looking Planet of the Apes prosthetics. But listen, it is what it is. It's a classic 1980s film. It's all about adolescence and all that stuff, and not being comfortable in your own skin and stuff like that. He's literally not comfortable in his own skin because he's transforming into a wolf. I presume later on it will. I've not seen it in a while, as I did say, but also there's elements and there's times in the film where he doesn't transform by choice. It just comes on him. And one of the most prominent ones I can remember was in the middle of a basketball match where he's at the bottom of a pile of guys fighting for the ball and he turns into a wolf. It's clearly not Michael J. Fox dunking the ball. It's clearly a big 6 foot potential basketball player who's doing it. They pan into close-ups, it's Michael J. Fox, totally different guy doing the stunt work, but that's fine. I'll let you in, Stephen. I watched it when I was a little boy. I didn't hate it by any means, although as I did to admit, Stephen, there's a lot of films I watched as a little boy that have turned out to be utter shite. So yeah.
Yeah, John, ironically, Back to the Future accidentally promoted this movie. It was just Michael J. Fox at this time was a big TV star in Family Ties, as we all know, and as you said, Eric Stoltz was the lead in the film. That I think Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale did want Michael J. Fox initially, but I think his contract with Family Ties put a sort of hex on him on getting that role, and it was then cast to Eric Stoltz, and I think 6 weeks down the line it wasn't working out with that actor. Not that Eric Stoltz is a bad actor. I think it was down to the comedy. It just was. I don't think that the producers were feeling or the directors were feeling the comedy was right for Eric Stoltz at this point in the film. And thankfully Michael J. Fox was recast. As they say, the rest is history. But this is a movie that Michael J. Fox doesn't like people talking about. It's very much like George Lucas in the Holiday Special. I think he'd burn every copy out there if it was possible. But too late, Michael. It's already all over the internet. There's nothing you can do about it. Yeah. And this movie, as you said, John, the character of Scott Howard, this is a typical 1980s film. And it sees the lead thinking he knows what he wants in life, and realises by the end of the movie that the thing that he needs most was right there in front of him all along. It's one of those ones. A lot of basketball sequences, which is quite funny when you consider Michael J. Fox is only 5'4", and he's a star in the team. But this shows
dunking an 8-foot basketball hoop, Stephen. How the hell did that happen? Did he get springs in his leg?
Those dance scenes as well with that white suit. It was like something out of Saturday Night Fever and Planet of the Apes crossover. It was really weird. Apart from looking at the cast, apart from Michael J. Fox and James Hampton to an extent, the rest of them were very unknown. I think they remained unknown as well. I don't think a lot of them actually made it out of this movie to go on and do anything prominent. So the movie itself, I liked this as a kid as well, I've got to be honest with you. You know, it was just one of those films where when you do go back and watch it, you do realise it wasn't as good as you first thought it was. A lot of films are like that, certainly when I was growing up in the 80s. You realise how badly made they were as well, and how badly edited they were. The Teen Wolf film, I don't think at any point do we see him changing gradually, apart from a couple of really dodgy prosthetic CG shots where he's looking in the mirror and his forehead's kind of bulging in and out. It's very poorly executed, the sort of transformation from being this teenage boy to this teenage wolf. And ironically, they went on to make a sequel to this that Michael J. Fox has got no part in. I know that James Hampton had a cameo in it, and Jason Bateman, he replaced Michael J. Fox as Scott's cousin, and it's basically the same story, except it's not basketball, it's boxing this time, but it's the same kind of angst that the lead character has as well, you know, insecurities about himself. He wants to be the centre of attention, he wants to be good at everything. It's exactly the same storyline, but you know, as I said, I think that was the first film I saw Jason Bateman in, actually. And it was, I can see why Michael J. Fox didn't touch it with a barge pole. But, you know, I'll just sum things up here. You know, overall, this movie, it was supposed to be a comedy. And if it wasn't for Michael J. Fox, who's a natural, his comedy timing and his performance can't even save this film. And he is not the problem in the movie, it's just the rest of it. It's a ridiculous storyline, which you can expect from the title, Teen Wolf, and there's no substance to it. It's a very shallow storyline. It's all about, you know, possessions and sort of superficial things in life, and it's not really till the last maybe 5 minutes of the movie that, you know, there's some kind of a story and meaning towards the character Scott Howard, but it's not a film I could recommend.
I'll sum things up by saying, Stephen, that also it's clearly got some horror elements in there, but it never does really follow through with those horror elements. When you do watch a film, it becomes apparent very quickly that nobody around the character cares or is scared about the fact that he's changing it this werewolf. There's a moment where his friend in the garage is hunting for a stash, and he turns around, he's not even remotely freaked out by the sight of this supposed friend of his turning into a teen wolf. You look at the tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes, 47% of the critics enjoyed it, and 52% of the audience members, so it's a fairly average affair, in truth be told, but I suppose it fires out some positive messages to anybody watching it in today's day and age, and that you can be comfortable in your own skin, and when you start being yourself and accepting who you are, good things will happen, because that's what happens to the character. He turns into a wolf, accepts it, and things start going up in his life. But I'm not going to add much more to it. We'll move on. Yeah, John, we're going to move on to a movie you reviewed earlier this week from 1967. I don't think we've went as far back as that so far, but this is clearly a retro review, this one, and it's an absolute classic. It is In the Heat of the Night, starring Sidney Poitier and Rod Steiger and Warren Oates, and it's directed by Norman Jewison. Yes, this is about an African-American chap coming down to visit his mother in a small town called Sparta, Mississippi, and he's really framed by one of the local coppers, Sam Wood, played by Warren Oates. There's a white man, just about the most important white man they have around those parts, as Chief Gillespie says later on. He's an industrialist, he's killed, and they try and pin it on Virgil Tibbs, played by Sidney Poitier. And then we get to see the introduction of him to the character of Chief Gillespie. It's quite volatile, it's full of comedic moments, it's infinitely quotable. Things just develop from there on in. He's quite condescending towards Virgil at the start. He slags his name off, thinks he's superior, but it becomes very apparent as the film progresses. Virgil, despite being an African American who's treated like crap and dirt in this very racist town, it becomes apparent that he's infinitely above everybody else in the town. He's intellectually superior, he's superiorly dressed, he's taller, everything about him is better, and he wants to prove his superiority over these racist white folks by solving this murder. He even turns the character of Gillespie around to his side. I wouldn't say he was a racist at the start, but certainly he's pandering to his paymasters, and he regains his moral compass as the film progresses. And we see that with the Endicott scene where he goes to the big plantation owner, and we see Virgil slapping him back after being slapped, and Chief Gillespie says, you're the same as us, basically, and he allows it. That shows you him regaining his humanity, accepting Virgil as a friend. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. It's an absolute classic film, Stephen, one of my all-time favourites. As I said, infinitely quotable. I will regularly rhyme off quotes from this film, and kickstarts whole reenactments, word for word, in certain scenes. Most notably the scene where he's asking him what his wage is, and Virgil replying at $162.39. There's so many great moments. It was a little bit choppy, a little bit dodgy with the editing. That's the only flaw I would say it has. There's whole sequences for me that completely go off in like a 90 or 180 degree angle, and there's just no need for it. Like when the convict's on the run, completely unnecessary, and it's about a 5-minute scene. It doesn't bring anything to the story. But out with that, amazing acting from Rod Steiger and Sidney Poitier. Rod Steiger actually got an Oscar win for this, and I'm not surprised. Incredible performance. Two completely different characters. He's more volatile and prone to frustration, whereas Virgil's a quiet, intelligent guy. Even when he's angry, he keeps it subdued and to himself, and he uses visual expressions and stuff to show obviously what his train of thought and his emotions are at that moment. Steiger, more out there, and I can see why the Oscar win. Some amazing performances throughout the film as well, though, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, Virgil Tibbs is more the dignified character in the movie, John, and Sidney Poitier portrays it perfectly. This movie I've not seen in over 30 years, John. My Auntie Minnie had the 20th anniversary VHS of this back in 1987, so it's a film that's been doing the rounds for such a long time now. It's over 50 years old, can you believe it? And getting that kind of high rating still on IMDb, I think it's 8 out of 10, and on the tomato meter as well, or tomato meter, 96%, and the audience score 92%. There's not many films from round about that time it's got such a high rating. Also, you're right, John, this explores the racial divides from the 1960s perfectly, and this was one of the first films that I saw that I experienced this. And you're absolutely right. It shows the ridiculousness of the situation for the time as well, and it's an absolute classic, and it still stands the test of time because the problems and the politics, etc., and the racial slurs, etc., are still relevant to today's society.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, Stephen. It does explore some powerful themes underneath some of the superficial stuff in the film. One of the things I really enjoyed was the combination of comedy at times intermixed with drama. There's some serious drama going on in this, some serious thriller moments as well when Virgil's getting chased by a pack of white guys wanting to do him damage. But the way they mix that, there's a lot of comedic moments in this, usually through the dialogue, and then it goes into more serious matters. And as you say, it explores the racial divide of the 1960s in the southern United States of America. It also explores the clash of the old ways of doing police work with the new, more scientific and thought-provoking and clever deduction ways that we're used to these days. The way those clashed and just accepting people for what they are, obviously, that's one of the powerful themes explored. The writer as well, you can't discuss this film without speaking about the writer Stirling Silliphant. This is a guy that was involved in some classic films throughout the 60s and the 70s. In the Heat of the Night, obviously, The Towering Inferno, Charlie, The Poseidon Adventure, some of my favourite films from that decade this guy was involved in. As you says before we come on, Quincy Jones done the score. Unbelievable score on this, thoroughly enjoyed it. There's some epic song choices in here. One I mentioned in my review, Foul Ill, On the Prowl, at the end. There's just the way they uses that to emphasise that Ralph, played by Anthony James in the film, is the guy that killed him. It goes to him and for an extended scene in his little cafe, and it shows him he's a sleazy figure. Just everything about the film. There's a couple of little flaws in there, but they're totally outweighed by the positives. You've got an amazing score. Visuals were decent. Ray Charles even done the theme in The Heat of the Night for the film. So overall, extremely positive, this film. It's one of my all-time favourites, and I can understand totally why it's getting such high ratings. I go back and watch it again and again and again. I never tire of watching it.
Yeah, I'm not comparing it to the Amiga Man, but it's one of those sort of films from that time that has that rewatchability, John. Yeah. I'm the same with The Time Machine, Rod Taylor film, and I think Alan Young is in there as well. But just moving on, John, we're moving to a movie that I reviewed on Tuesday night, actually. This is another DC animated film. I managed to get my hands on this Blu-ray and I'm so glad I did. This is the Green Lantern Emerald Knights from 2011, and this stars Nathan Fillion, Jason Isaacs, Elizabeth Moss. There's the whole host of actors, well-known actors in there as well. Very much like the theme that I've been continuing on with these movies. I'm just very impressed with the casting, and in this movie, this is a different film from the First Flight. A lot of people don't think it's as good as First Flight. I'm probably in that party as well. I think I thoroughly enjoyed First Flight. That's not to say this film isn't a good film. The basis of this film is how Jordan, he must prepare his new recruit Aricia, who is played by Elizabeth Moss, for the coming conflict by relating stories of the first Green Lantern and several of Hal's comrades. And really what you've got here is, if you're coming into this sort of Green Lantern universe with fresh eyes, this is a good movie to watch to really understand the universe and the Green Lantern surroundings and the characters involved in this universe. And it does tell the stories very well. This is one of the things I did pick up in this movie, and I did mention in my review, is that the storytelling in this is first class. It's some of the best storytelling I've saw in DC animated films. Some of the animation, I think it might just be my eyes playing a trick on me, but I'm pretty sure that the animation styles for each of these sort of backstories was slightly different. Some of it was a little bit silly and cartoony, and some of the alien characters were quite funny to look at, but it didn't take the story away from the sort of overall arc of these characters. And I'm not sure if these stories were taken direct from comic book or not, but I have heard that this film was more aimed at the sort of core base of comic book fans, the ones that know all the Green Lantern stories. But as I said, getting into this, it really did educate me on some of the backstories. And as I said, the cast was fantastic once again. I think a lot of these cast members, like Fillion, Isaacs and Moss, and Arnold Vosloo's in there as well, the chap that played the mummy in the Brendan Fraser films. He's in there too. He played Ra's al Ghul, I'm pretty sure, in one of the Batman films. It might have been Under the Red Hood. And they've all got this history of working in the comic book animation movies and television series, so they've all got that experience there. But personally, I enjoyed First Flight film as an overall experience, but storytelling wise, Emerald Knights is one of the best in the DC animated universe out there. And my advice for anyone that's not started on their DC adventures yet, I'd go back and watch them chronologically and embrace the build up to this cracking film from Christopher Bertley and Lauren Montgomery. It is highly recommended.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been, obviously I read your review, Stephen. I've been looking at a couple of other little reviews on the film, because I've never seen any of the animated films, as you do know. So I always find it intriguing to see what the hell they're doing in these little animated films and how it's maybe impacted live action forays into the same characters. Also, we had a horrendous Green Lantern film, live action film, starring Ryan Reynolds. I don't know how it connects, where it's even got a connection. It probably hasn't. But you look at the cast, and the cast in these films usually are pretty decent. You've got Nathan Fillion, great actor. Jason Isaacs, I know him well from a whole host of films, but most prominently as Lucius Malfoy in the Harry Potter films. He's playing Sinestro. I have no idea who Sinestro is, as someone that's not frequented or read any of the stories about Green Lantern. Elizabeth Moss, Henry Rollins, and as you did say, Arnold Vosloo, who I've not seen since the Mummy films. I didn't really know what he'd went on to do, but certainly appears to have went on to do some cracking animated films, so fair play to him. It's an interesting concept, Stephen. Apparently it's 5 different stories that utilise flashbacks to go back and look at, and obviously it's this group of people within the Lantern Corps who then go to face their biggest challenge yet. That's an intriguing concept. I do like films that use flashbacks and obviously introduce you to all these different characters. Certainly if it's being aimed at comic book fans in the main, then they won't know who these characters are anyway. They'll be well versed in who they are and what their role is to play. But it's good for people who perhaps aren't as well versed in the comic book stories. They're introducing their backstories, showing you how they've got to where they are at this stage, and how they're all going to have a part to play fighting this creature or thing. I don't know who it is, Stephen. I've not watched the film, but I'm intrigued to see it, because I'm definitely going to go and watch all these films at some point, and I'll probably nick them off you. That's one thing I have noticed looking at some of the photos of all the different films, is just the difference and the styles of animation that they use. It's quite interesting. You can see it there. It's amazing visuals. It's almost like it came straight off a comic book page. Just the way that they use vibrant lights. Obviously, emerald green's a big colour with the Green Lantern, and you can see it there. It's surrounding the characters. The animation looks beautiful. In terms of ratings, there's not anything from the critic side on the tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience members, it's well over 7,000 reviews, 7,500, and it's getting a very decent 71% rating. It's not amazing, they're saying, but it's certainly above average. So
yeah. One of the things that I'll point out as well, John, from these covers from the DC universe, the Green Lantern one's an absolute peach.
Yes.
And as you said, the emerald green is prominent throughout. In fact, the intro, the sort of introduction, the credits, the Warner Brothers signs all in green, and so is the DC logo as well, all in green. So that's kind of the theme. But this is one of those movies that it's probably the most colourful movie I've seen in all of the ones I've watched so far. They use plenty of colours in this. Some of the action sequences are very graphic as well. And I do think that's down to both the directors. They've got this backlog of working on films like the Batman series and stuff like that, the sort of darker elements to these superheroes. And you see that in this movie. There's a lot of graphic scenes, violence, which isn't, they don't shy away from that in these films, and I'm glad they don't, because these films they're not aimed at kids. They're aimed at the avid comic book reader, and they do their best to try and adapt these films and pay not so much homage, but stay true to what the comic book geeks enjoy about the paper versions of these comic books and bringing them to life. They seem to know what they're doing with their animated films. I just wish they would get their act together with a live action.
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing I have read consistently, Stephen. The opening 15 minutes in this film is absolutely brutal, and that's staying true to the comic books themselves, because some of the stuff I've seen, it's brutal. It tells the story quite frankly. There's violence in them, and that's okay on my part. I love this other guy's comment that I've just read there, but he says that this is a tried and tested thing to do with DC animated films. And certainly I've seen that from some of your reviews, Stephen, as well, where they dedicate 10-15 minutes to telling the backstory of a character, and then they drive on with the rest of the story. And you've seen that, he hits the nail on the head. You see that with Wonder Woman in live action. They did that very well. We get introduced to her character, the backstory, how she became who she is in the current day, showing her training and stuff like that, and then they push forward with the story. So it's a very nice structure to do with a film like this. And I'll probably give us a bash at some point.
Yeah, certainly. I'll pass them on to you, John, when I'm done. But we'll just move on to our final movie this week. This is one that was written by Darren from 2016. It's Lights Out. Yes. And this was directed by David F. Sandberg, who we know is, I think he's actually completed, he's in post-production with the upcoming DC film Shazam. And this movie stars Teresa Palmer, Gabriel Bateman and Maria Bello. And the plot to this is Rebecca, must be the lead character, must unlock the terror behind her little brother's experiences that once tested her sanity, bringing her face to face with a supernatural spirit attached to their mother. Now, the Rotten Tomatoes score on this, I think the critics rated this at 76%, with an audience rating at 61%, which is quite good for a horror film, John.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I can't lie, Stephen, I haven't seen it. It was one of the ones that I really did want to go and see. I think around about 2016 I was diving into a lot of horror films, maybe even 10 Cloverfield Lane. I think that was out round about then. I watched that. I watched Green Room, Hush and things like that, so I was very busy. And also I just missed this one that went under the radar, which is a shame, because certainly it does seem to be a decent little film. Judging on Darren's review, he got a lot of enjoyment out of it. It's using the concept of a darkness, I believe, in this ghost or spirit, using darkness to really terrorise the inhabitants of this house, I believe. I've not seen it. And I think it's got the ability to switch, muck about and affect light bulbs and stuff. You were talking about it as something linked into a brother or something. This is experiences he had as a child, and it's now affecting her. So it's an interesting concept. I'm sure it's decent enough. The cast looks very good. Teresa Palmer, very good actress. Darren does say she's underrated. She doesn't get the recognition she deserves, and I'd get on board with that. Bully Buck as well. This is a guy that's been in a whole host of really good films over the years. Most notably Fracture, which was a cracking film with Ryan Gosling and Anthony Hopkins. So I've not seen the film, but certainly the reviews and Darren's review seem to point to it being a decent enough film. I do believe it was produced by James Wan, who's a guy who's well versed in the horror genre. So you know what you're getting with that guy. If any of his touch on it at all, then it should be decent. I would probably go and watch this just as a precursor to seeing Shazam and seeing the style of David F. Sandberg, because I don't know much about the guy. This was his feature-length debut, so yeah, I mean, I've not seen it. I can't add much more, but I'll let you in and then I can maybe study it a little bit more, Stephen.
Yeah, I think this is one of these ones. This is what I love about movie reviews, because it does entice you in, and you know, your curiosity does get the better of you. And certainly in Darren's review, it's got me curious to, you know, seen this film now. I don't know if it's on maybe Netflix or something like that. I'll certainly look on our UK Netflix to see if this movie is available. If not, I'll keep my eye out for it, because it does sound okay. Maria Bello, not heard of her since I think Grown Ups or something like that she was in. I do remember she was in Coyote Ugly as well. That must be about 18 years old now. Apparently she does very well in this movie. But as you said, John, it's one of those movies that came out round about the time horror movies were getting good ratings a couple of years ago. A lot of good independent horror films as well were coming out round about this time. And, you know, when you get a director like Sandberg on board as well, I'm very interested to see what he's going to be doing with this Shazam film. It's certainly a different film to this, the different genre, but he's certainly on form over the last few years anyway. And yeah, I'll check this out. If I can get a hold of a copy of this, or maybe on a streaming service, I'll certainly look out for this, because I do find this storyline and Darren's reviews very intriguing.
Yeah, I find it very intriguing that people are saying that it's got a lot of really good jump scares, unlike most horror movies that worked well, and it really does play into that, obviously, childhood fear of the dark. It's just an intriguing concept, as I did say. This certain chap that I'm reading just now says the cinematography was pretty fantastic. The plot, the setting, and the acting in general was of a decent standard, so we're getting conflicting reports here. Darren loved it, this guy loved it, but the tomato meter in the audience are saying it's fairly average fare. That's probably because horror is quite a subjective genre anyway. A lot of people got on board with it, they'll love it, others won't. This guy says it isn't even a horror anyway, it's more of a suspenseful drama. As I did say, the concept's intriguing. It's, she knows this woman that had a sensitivity to lights. This woman's obviously died and she has came back and haunted her. She has to try and find out why she's haunting her and maybe sort the situation out and bring her to the light before her kids and her are obviously murdered by this deranged spirit. So yeah, I'll give this a watch at some point. I like a good horror. I'm always searching for one that would scare me. I've yet to find one since I was maybe 5 or 6 years old that gave us a right good scare. Maybe this will be the one for me, Stephen, I don't know. But that just brings us to the end of this week's episode of the Movie Burner blog rundown, where we break down all the films on the Movie Burner blog. We'd just like to thank you for listening to us once again, and we'll be back tomorrow with the Force Friday show.
Remember guys, if you enjoyed that episode, then do hit that like button, comment below, and maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. If you want to follow us on social media for all the latest updates from Movie Burner Entertainment, then we can be found on Twitter and Facebook at Movie Burners. You can also listen to us on Google Play and iTunes at the Movie Burner Podcast. And last but not least, if you want to access all the latest written reviews and the occasional article, then that can be found on our website at movieburnerentertainment.org. Until the next time, goodbye.